You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English, the group that's been publishing educational material used by millions of learners around the world. Today, Burlington is a major supplier of digital material for individuals learning English. Burlington continues to grow, enter new markets, and introduce new innovations in language, teaching, and learning. And now, here are co-hosts Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi.
Welcome to Coalition on Adult Basic Education Adult Ed Advocast, the podcast that helps you become a more effective advocate for adult education. I'm Sara Haghighi, Refugee Education Program Coordinator at Pima Community College and the 2021 Arizona State Advocate for Adult Education Fellow. I introduce myself as a passionate educator who believes in empowering students and raising their critical consciousness about social conditions, and my co-host here is Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Vobornik, the 2021 State Advocate for Adult Education Fellow from Illinois, an ESL instructor at Elgin Community College, and a board member of IASA, which is Illinois' Adult and Continuing Educators Association.
We have a great show for you today, all about forming an effective advocacy group. We'll chat with Regina Suitt, COABE's president-elect and the public policy chair, and Estefania Marroquin, a former ESL student and a seasoned advocate. So, Erin, it's been busy these days with COABE's conference and all the good stuff that has been going on and meeting the new SAFE and all of that. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling really excited, but also really exhausted. So, Advocacy April was busy. There was just a buzz about it that I was really excited about. A fantastic conference with amazing sessions, and just a lot of legislative visits here in Illinois. How about you?
Same here. The burnout is real, but it's all exciting because we are very tired of all the work. That doesn't mean that it's not exciting. So the conference has been amazing. I'm very excited about watching the online sessions that I didn't get the opportunity to watch during the conference session.
I agree. I think that's probably my favorite part about these virtual options is being able to go back and watch things, so I can take notes or write down things that I didn't hear, and then I can see every conference, like every session, like you were saying.
Right.
Otherwise,
Exactly.
I'm normally like poring over the program. Like, what do I cut? What do I go to? I can't be everywhere at once.
I know there were some sessions that I wanted to go, but they were concurrent with the sessions that I was either presenting myself or a colleague of mine was presenting. So I went to the in-person to support my colleague, but then I have an opportunity to go and watch the sessions that I originally wanted to attend. So
yeah, I'm really excited. I invited some students as well, so they were
that is
able
exciting.
to log in and enjoy it as well.
And guess who was the keynote?
Anna
Chavarrin.
From our last episode, she was amazing, which does not surprise me because I was just blown away by our conversation with her last time.
I know. She's amazing. Yes.
And I'm so excited for the guests that we have today. Regina is just like a pro in advocacy. And so I think we're going to learn a lot from her today. And of course, Estefania, who I know very well and who has done some really incredible things. I'm excited for her to be here and to talk from the student perspective. So
exciting.
I know. Before we can get there, though, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to do Hot on the Hill.
You're listening to Advocast, the adult education podcast. And now it's time for What's Hot on the Hill with Erin and Sara. Take it away.
Welcome back to the Adult Education Advocast. I am Erin Vobornik. I'm here with Sara Haghighi, and we are going to talk about what's hot on the Hill. So, quite a bit has been happening. So on March 15th, President Biden signed into law the fiscal year 22 appropriations. There's an increase of $15.5 million over last year's level. It included $690 million for Adult Ed State Grants program. And while we're really happy that there's been an increase, we all know our programs could do so much more if we had adequate funding. And so to really help build that capacity for the influx of learners that we're expecting, we want to advocate for more. So please urge people, members of Congress, for $810 million for the final appropriations bill. The second thing is WIOA. And in Illinois, we say WIOA. I know in some places they say WIOA, and some people say WIOA, but we all know what it means. It's that Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And on April 5th, the House Education and Labor Committee approved legislation to reauthorize WIOA. And that legislation was introduced on March 31st by Chairman Bobby Scott from Virginia, and COABE was communicating with Chairman Scott's office just to make sure that this bill includes the language that allows for more innovation and opportunity for adult learners. And as a result of these conversations, several of COABE's recommendations in this legislation are authorizing an innovative pilot performance accountability system, dedicated increase in the amount programs can spend on professional development, COABE conference, and supporting the development of improved credentials and quality standards for adult educators to enhance career pathways and really ensure the effectiveness of the programs and the education that we're providing. So really excited about that information. However, this is the start of a long reauthorization process. So we'll keep you up to date on this podcast of what is happening there. But we will need advocates to really urge that these three things are included in there. Again, it's the pilot performance system, expanding PD, and then approved pathways for adult education.
Yeah. All good news, all good things, but this is the time that everybody needs to make sure that all those three components are included. So it's very important for everyone. They don't have to be educators. They can just be supportive of adult ed programs in the entire country. They can reach out to their legislators and request for more funding, request for those three components to be included. And they can talk about the importance of having an adult ed program in their community. These are all good stuff. So sometimes it's very hard for people to get it started with, so they don't know how to start, how to contact their legislators. They really want to, but they don't know how to. So COABE has made it easy. So you just need to go to COABE's website, coabe.org. COABE is spelled as COAB.org. And then there is a tab that you go for legislation, and then there is take action section that you go to. There you can find the 3-click website that basically with 3 clicks, you can email all your legislators. And then you can either tweak the emails that you're going to send them, or you can use the sample that is provided. But all their email addresses, everything has been provided. So it's all good. And then if you don't want to email them, you prefer to give them a call, you can find the information of your legislators on COABE's website. There is a website that you can go and type in your home address and then find all that information, and then you can contact them.
I'm always too scared to do the phone call. Maybe it's just the millennial in me, but I'd prefer typing it out. There's something about when someone answers the phone, my mind goes blank. That three click is just so easy that there's no reason not to do it. You're right.
I know. And I remember once I even called and exactly as you said, I went blank. And then I started reading from the email. Right with that 3 clicks, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. And that really helped too. So
it does. And I love that advice. That email itself provides so much information just to read through and be able to talk to people in the community, at your local chamber of commerce, whoever you're talking to, just to spread the word about adult education.
Exactly. Yes. That is so great. And I always, whenever there is a confirmation email, I just brag about all those emails and says, our legislators email me. And that is a confirmation email, but who knows?
It is. Right. I get emails from the president's office. They're just saying, thank you.
Great. Yeah. Okay, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we can start talking to our guests today.
Yes.
You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English, the group that's been publishing educational material used by millions of learners around the world. Today, Burlington is a major supplier of digital material for individuals learning English. Burlington continues to grow, enter new markets, and introduce new innovations in language, teaching, and learning. And now, here are co-hosts Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi.
Welcome back. My name is Sara Haghighi, and I'm with my co-host Erin Vobornik, and you've been listening to Adult Ed Advocast. With us today is Regina Suitt. Welcome, Regina. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, you guys.
This is very exciting because Regina and I go back to when I got hired for my new job. I mean, it's not new anymore, my current job, but I'm Regina's last hire. So always in all meetings that we go together, we try to mention that. So.
Oh, her last hire and her first podcast appearance, which really surprises me.
Well, I'm not a millennial, so, I'm learning about podcasts just like lots of others in the field.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. Regina, you're a very well-known person, but could you please introduce yourself and tell us about how you joined adult ed programs?
Well, thanks both of you so much for having me. So my name's Regina Suitt, and I'm the current COABE president-elect and the public policy chair, but I've been involved with COABE for many, many years. I started as a regional rep. I was the student engagement chair, the public policy chair many years ago, then vice president for membership. But I started in adult education as a part-time teacher, like many, many people in the field, and I fell in love with it. I thought, the students were the best. They were so polite. They wanted to be there and they wanted to learn. And I just tried to figure out how to piece part-time jobs together for many years until I could find a full-time job. And so I started as a teacher and then just kind of moved my way around the various programs at Pima Community College. And I retired in 2019 as vice president for Adult Basic Ed for College and Career.
Wow. So You retired in 2019. I see you all over the place, though.
Well, you know what? Now I have time to do even more. So besides being able to garden and soon be a new grandma, I volunteer for several organizations, both locally and of course for COABE. So I have a little bit more time to invest now that I'm retired. I want to try to use what skills I learned over the 30 years. I want to use them before I forget them.
Well, we're so excited that you are here to share those skills and that knowledge, because every time that I hear you speak, I learn something new,
Oh,
something that I can use. So I'm interested in what it is about advocacy that drew you in.
So just a little bit of more about my family. My mom was just this, scrappy immigrant. And so I saw her advocating for herself and for her friends and for us, her children. My dad was, full on union man. And I remember some of my, earliest memories were, being on a picket line with him. And so I felt like I always, between my mom's immigrant story and her having to advocate for herself and my dad and his experiences, that I was kind of born into this advocacy family. So, I've been preparing my whole life and watching other people do it really, really well and learning from them and then learning also what didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yes. When the best way to draw into advocacy is by watching your parents.
I would say too that
follow their steps.
I would add that, when I started teaching in adult education, I fell in love with those students and I wanted to help them. And so I think that also, kind of drew me into advocating for adult education.
That's amazing. So with all the experience that you have, I'm wondering who are some of the more common audiences that adult education professionals advocate to?
Well, I mean, there's the standard legislator, right? I mean, that's where we kind of concentrate a lot of energy on because they have the power, right, to pass legislation and to pass budgets that affect us. But what I've learned over the years is that you can create a kind of whole network and web, building a team so that it's not just you, and it makes you more effective and it makes the messaging more effective. I know the first time I went to DC was in 2007, and the president's budget at that time came out with a very substantial cut to adult education. And so my boss said, why don't you go to DC? I'm like, all right, well, I didn't know what I was doing exactly, but I not only went to DC, but I took a group of students with me. And that's really where I learned that students are an integral part of any kind of advocacy team, because, I could come in with the glossiest of flyers and the splashiest of data and facts, and they wanted to hear from the students. They wanted to hear from folks who were, in programs. And so that was where I learned how important students are. But if you can build a bigger team, it's even better. Maybe you could bring the student's employer or have them somehow involved, or their kid's teacher, or your college president or school superintendent. There's community leaders that you can kind of build into a network, and it takes a little bit of the responsibility off of you always having to do the advocacy part, but it also tells a different story, and it shows how important adult education is across the spectrum, right, from K through 12 to businesses to community organizations. So building kind of a team is really important. And so you asked me about who the common audience was for advocacy, and certainly legislators are, but so are those other people that you want on your team. So your workforce development, board chair, or your college president, or your school superintendent, or maybe there's a very influential faith leader in your community who has, a lot of influence in your community. Don't limit it just to the senators and policymakers, because even though they are important, because they are the ones that hold the purse strings, you can ask your new friends in these other roles to do the advocacy work for you, and you're building awareness about what adult education is, all while doing all of that.
That sounds like quite the dream team right there. That is quite the lineup. So since we're coming off of, this is airing in May, we're coming off of Advocacy April, and I'm sure there are some listeners out there who are just thinking like, I'm exhausted. I've been doing this on my own. I'm nearing burnout. I just can't find anyone to join my dream team. Where might they find fellow advocates to connect with?
Well, I mean, I think getting comfortable with advocacy is kind of the first place to start. And so, start with your neighbor, don't start with the governor. So being comfortable with that. I think it's really important too, to build relationships with people so that you can call on them and ask. And the relationships have to be authentic and real, not just like you're asking for something, but that it's, both ways. And how can you help, the other person with whatever it is they're working on, and kind of finding those, connections and crossovers and synergies with some of the people that I mentioned previously. I think that, COABE is a really great resource. Your state association, if your state has a strong state association, maybe there's an advocacy or a public policy or legislative committee that you can join, and then you'll be with like-minded people. I would say that, in the olden days, before webinars and the computer and all, listservs were the first time, were the first way I found other advocates at the national level, was joining listservs. And so I would say being on listservs and recognizing people, going to conferences, going to webinars, and putting in the chat, hey, anybody else from, Wyoming want to advocate? Like, those are all really great opportunities. And then I would say, a phone call, building a relationship through a phone call is really important.
Those are some great suggestions. Yeah, state associations, I think are a hugely underutilized resource for finding some like-minded folks to do advocacy with. And I love your idea about webinars, because I've always felt maybe a little creepy doing this, but when people say, hi, I'm from like Illinois, if it's an advocacy focused webinar, I write down their names so that I can find them and say, hey, do you want to, I'm meeting with a legislator in your area. Do you want to come along with me?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you have to do. And I feel like, advocates, people like you too, and others, have that natural ability to, and desire to kind of get to know other people and pick their brains and learn from them, and to do that advocacy work. I think it takes, kind of somebody who is willing to put themselves out there and has a little bravery around meeting new people and trying new things. And but I'm sure, as both of you can can testify, that once you do it 5-10 times, it gets so much easier.
It really is. Yeah. So Regina, some of us have been working in programs that are very supportive of advocacy work. For example, in the program that I work in, we have a culture of advocacy. So it is not a new concept. But I know that there are some listeners out there that in their programs, their administrators are probably not very supportive of advocacy work, and they might have some colleagues that they might be hesitant to do any advocacy work. How do you suggest that we can create that dream team, or how we can balance this work, that we can keep our job and respect all the policy that goes in the work and also do the advocacy work?
I think that's really important. I think, programs that, allow this work and support this work are probably, in the minority. I don't think that colleges or school districts have anything against adult ed, or it's more about fear. People are sometimes afraid. Politics nowadays can be, very scary and divisive, but I always remind people that advocacy isn't politics. Advocacy really is raising awareness about your cause, and what it is. And so many times with adult education, the first step is just making sure that everybody in your organization internally knows what you do and knows what adult education is, because they might not. You might think they know it and they don't. And so starting with kind of an awareness campaign internally and then building relationships from that, I think is one way to certainly do that. There's lots of other ways that might seem weird, but give your boss an award for being supportive of adult ed. Like, get your state association, like make them into a champion when they're maybe not quite sure that they are. I think that we highlight legislators and policymakers and people that have supported adult ed in varying degrees. It's not always a lot, but once they get recognition and understand what adult education is, it makes it a lot easier. And you can turn somebody who was probably a friend, hopefully internally, your boss or your boss's boss, and turn them into champions. I mean, that's really what you want, is so that everybody that you build a relationship with is now an adult education champion and advocate when you're not there.
That's great advice.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice.
I just want to add one more thing too. I think, one of the things that we might think we have to do is go straight to the top, straight to the school superintendent or straight to the governor or straight to the college president or whatever. But I think you can build relationships, sideways and laterally, and maybe people that work for those people, so that you don't always have to start at the very top. But if everybody around a leader is talking about adult ed and is becoming a champion and is like, what about adult ed? Then the leader will also be hearing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So speaking of great advice that you give, we were recently talking and you corrected an intro that I had been doing with state legislators, and I think our listeners would benefit from my mistake. So, I'm willing to be vulnerable here. So let's rehash it for the nation.
You're so brave, Erin.
We all
That's
make
probably
mistakes.
something that all of us do.
Well, I learned it from my own mistakes, so it's not only yours.
Right.
Yeah.
I learned my best lessons through my mistakes. If I do something right the first time, it doesn't help. If I mess it up, I will never forget. So I have been, I had done a lot of legislative visits in April for Advocacy April. And for about half that month, I was starting our conversations by asking legislators or stakeholders the question, what do you know about adult education? And you very politely and kindly said, how about you consider? So first, can you share why that's maybe not the best thing to start with and what a good alternative would be to open a conversation?
So, I mean, I think I learned this through mistake as well. And most of the time when I would start out with that, I would get kind of blank stares many times, or I don't know, or I could tell, because this was in the olden days when we met in person. I could tell that they felt bad, like they felt like they didn't know something that they should know, and I could see that. And so I started kind of experimenting with various other ways. And when I think about it, like, who wants to start a relationship feeling stupid, or feeling like you don't know something? And so I just started trying different ways to somehow, in the introduction, maybe sprinkle a little bit about what adult education is. So, hi, my name is Regina Suitt, and, I work in adult education, which is GED prep and English as a second language. So I'm already giving them a little bit of like tutorial, right? I might say something like, this is my favorite, and 100% of the time I've done this in 30 years or however long, it always comes back with a positive response. I might say something like, my mom had to learn English and she got her citizenship. I bet you know somebody, Erin, that had to do that. And like, could you tell me about that person? Or you could just wait for a yes or no answer. Or, just about everybody knows somebody that got a high school equivalency or a GED or their citizenship or learned English. And so that right out of the gate is building that relationship and that commonality that you and the policymaker or the office, assistant or whoever you're meeting with might have it. And so I feel like when you're building a relationship, that like coming up with that kind of common, knowledge together, then you can kind of go in and you don't even have to say what is adult ed, because they're learning as you get to know each other.
And I can attest, it works. It works much better. It gets that conversation going. And then I don't feel like I need to be the educator. I can be the constituent or just be the concerned citizen and have a conversation. And it does feel a lot more natural. So thank you for not just letting that slide and be like, oh, she'll figure it out. So thanks for that correction. And thanks for sharing that with all of our listeners so that they can try that fantastic opener you recommended.
I was just going to add, is that, people shouldn't be afraid of building relationships with new people. Legislators and their office staff, they're just, human beings like the rest of us. They don't know everything. They need a little help from us. And so we just want to do it in a gentle and kind way while we're building a relationship with each other.
That's great.
Right. And Erin, I just wanted to say that that's not only you. I remember I started by just asking the same question because in my head, it was very easy to start a conversation. But I remember I was in a visit with Regina, and when I started that way later in our debrief session, Regina told me that, hey, did you see that legislator just sat and then just took notes and didn't communicate with us that much? And that is probably because that question was like, okay, so if I don't know anything, you can just talk to me. So apparently you think I don't know anything, and I don't know anything, and already felt bad. So we turned the conversation, and Regina was there, and we managed that meeting. That meeting went well, but that's how I learned too. So
that's a really, I think, powerful part of having a dream team. And Regina, as Sara just mentioned, the debrief. So what exactly happens in a debrief after you've maybe met with a stakeholder with your team?
So I would say the first thing you need to do is go in with a plan. I still, after 100 years of doing this, do not go into legislative visit without a plan. Who's going to start? Who's going to ask this question? Who's going to finish? Who's going to make the ask? All of that. I feel like it needs to be planned. And at first you can even use one of COABE's scripts, because the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. But we found in everything that we did with students, if we really wanted to turn it into, a learning opportunity, we had to debrief. And so at the debrief, we said, we say, what went well, and we get people kind of talking about the positive nature of, things that they, learned from the visit. Then we what could we improve on? It was during these debrief sessions with students that I felt even more in love with advocacy, and I saw the power and the transformation in our students and in even some staff when they were doing it, where they were taking this power that they didn't think they had, where they were sharing their story that they thought was a deficit, and they turned it into an asset. And it's my favorite part of advocacy is those debriefs and seeing that happen, right then and there.
Exactly. I agree. Those debrief really help any sort of advocate. So if you're a new advocate or if you're a seasoned advocate, yes, that's how you want to do it. Regina, I know you've gone to so many meetings, but what's an advocacy success story that you've had that you would like to share with us?
Well, I would say, being a part of the COABE team since 2017, when we launched Educate and Elevate, we've received, over $100 million in increases. I think that's, a lot of advocacy, that using the 3 clicks, that kind of thing. But I would say, the work that was really near and dear to my heart, and where I learned a lot, was when Arizona cut the adult education funding 100%, and we had to work for 3.5 years to get it back. And I'm really proud that I led that effort with so many students and staff and folks from around the state. When we were getting told that we would never get it back once it's zeroed out, like the earth has been salted, but we got it back. We got it back exactly the same amount that, unfortunately, it's the same amount as that we've had since 1995. But, at least we got it back.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's
Thank
a
you.
huge success.
Regina, could you please share with our listeners how they can find you, how they can contact you?
Well, you can email me through COABE at the president-elect at coabe.org, or I'm on Twitter at Regina Suitt. So those are both ways to kind of see what I'm up to.
That's
Great.
great. Thank you so much.
So if you stick around, we'll bring you back at the end of the show. So listeners, hang in there. We'll bring Regina back on so she can give us some final thoughts. But we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to speak to Estefania, former ESL student. So Regina, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be seeing you very soon.
You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English, the group that's been publishing educational material used by millions of learners around the world. Today, Burlington is a major supplier of digital material for individuals learning English. Burlington continues to grow, enter new markets, and introduce new innovations in language, teaching, and learning. And now, here are co-hosts Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi.
Welcome back to the Adult Ed Advocast. My name's Erin. I'm here with my co-host Sara, and we're being joined today, I'm so excited, by Estefania Marroquin, who is a Colombian immigrant with unique insights into advocacy. And I know we've talked before also about the needs of immigrant women. So Estefania, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Hi, Estefania. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
So I'd like to open it up and let you just kind of introduce yourself and your journey getting to an adult education program.
So hello everyone. My name is Maira Estefania Marroquin. So it's a long name, as all Spanish name. Currently, I am studying at Elgin Community College. I'm my last semester of my associates in arts to transfer to the UIC to finish a bachelor's degree in neuroscience. Also, I'm working with Motorola Solutions, and when I came to this country, I didn't speak English. So it was back in 2017. And I studied English in Elgin Community College by the end of the year of 2018.
So when you came to the United States, about how much English did you speak in 2017?
I knew how to say okay and hi.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's how
No.
much I knew.
That's
So
good. That's how much most people know when they come from a different country in United States. What do you think helped you to succeed?
Well, I was scared when I started studying English, as I mentioned to Erin. I remember back in 2018 when I was around a lot of people who was trying to learn English, and I hear all the stories from them where they say, "Oh, I have been living in the United States for 20 years," and they were in the same level as me. So, and in different years, 10 years, 5 years. So I was so afraid, like to not be able to achieve my goals, that I start studying more. I practically delete my home language to start focusing a lot in English. So I think that's why I guess it was my success.
and you make a really good point about different experiences in the United States. Some people who, at least in our area, because Estefania is by me, you can live and work and go about life in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so that's where those, having been in the country for 20 years and not having, begun those, or having just begun those ESL classes. And then the person who is very new to the area and doesn't realize that's the case. And, I understand that can be really jarring to think, oh my goodness, like I want to achieve my dreams. And look at you achieving your dreams, neuroscience.
Yes.
That's amazing.
At the University of Illinois, Chicago. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Stefania. And it's always good to be bilingual or multilingual.
Thank you so much. Yes, I believe that being in community college and being in all the process about learning a new language, getting a new skills, learning how to communicate and understand other people around me, it made me realize the importance of our brain. So I believe that process helped me to find my passion.
That's wonderful.
Great. That's wonderful. So go ahead, Erin.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so you talked about like the things that helped you succeed. I'm always interested in hearing from students and from our adult learners, what's one thing that you really wish a teacher had done for you that would have helped you? And this is not a trick question because I was your teacher. So please be honest.
Yeah, should I answer?
Yes, please do.
Erin, you didn't do that for me.
Yeah, I was like, I will say something, but it's not you, but I will say something. Well, to be honest, I wish my teacher will tell me that my life in the United States is not going to be like that. If like people around me being in the United States for so long and they aren't able to speak English, that I want to be like that. So I wish my teacher explained that to me because I was really, really scared with that, to be honest. And another thing is, when you are studying English, it's kind of like it's hard for them as well to explain certain topics and stuff like that. But certain people doesn't understand in the same ways than others. I wish when we start the classes, we kind of like look at the different ways of people learn. Not all of the teachers do that. And I am more a visual person, and I need to do something to learn instead of just reading. If I'm gonna read something, I want to understand as the same as I'm watching something, or if I'm practicing. So the different methodologies of learning will be so much better if the teacher provide us like different ways to do it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is like just feeling valued and getting that connection, right? The teacher opening up the class so people can talk about their experiences, so people can, talk about who they are and how they learn. That's incredible advice, Estefania.
Yeah. And Stefania, I'm also not from United States originally. So I came to United States as an adult, and I went through the same things that you went through. And yes, during the first couple of years, I wanted someone to tell me that, okay, if you're struggling right now, it's not going to be like that always, and life will get better. That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. So I hear that you're a seasoned advocate. You have advocated to both the president of your community college and to the staff of a federal legislator. What would you say to others who want to advocate but are too nervous?
Well, it was hard for me at the beginning, but one of the things that I forced myself to do it was because if I didn't do it, how I could expect someone else do it. So for those people who feels nervous, uh, it's like I can perfectly understand them, because just put yourself out and speak with people who really speak very well English, and you just know how to say hi. So it's kind of like it's hard, but I will say to them, just do it. You may feel embarrassed, you may feel great, but just do it. Like, just jump on it, because if you do that, you will inspire other people to do it. If you put yourself out there, other people will see you as an example, and if you could do it, I couldn't do it. So that's like my advice for all of those people who feel nervous, which I totally understand that.
And I was there with you for the president of the community college, and so we all had our nerves going in. And I just have to give Estefania a shout out. She taught the president of our community college how to use QR codes in that meeting. And after, in our debrief, like there was just this buzz in our group of like, wow, like we did it, and like it was, and Estefania might not know this, but that was like a huge turning point in my passion for advocacy. I was like, I was also very nervous, and I was like, Estefania rocked it. I mean, I need to up my game here.
So one of the points about being an immigrant in another country, being like from an older age, like older than 20 or 25 years old, is you may have way more knowledge that you think, but it's so hard to express it. It's so hard to show you how smart I am or what I know because of the language barrier. So maybe a person can be very good, like treating certain illness, but they don't know how to explain it. So for you, maybe being a person who doesn't know anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Not knowing the language doesn't mean that you don't know anything. You come with a vast knowledge and experience in your life, and they were all in a different language. Now you need to transfer them into a new language.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that part of the QR code that it was kind of funny. And I remember explaining to them, and I was just so excited and nervous at the same time.
And that, I think, summarizes like just the feelings of putting yourself out there. That's hard to do.
Yes.
So thinking back on just any time that you've advocated for yourself or for someone else, what's a success that you've had?
The success that I had been like advocacy is engaging other people to pursue their goals. I have been crossing along with so many people who have been dropping off school, have been dropping off learning the language because of the reason that because they felt at the same way that I felt. So I told them, when I speak with them, I told them, yeah, I was feeling the same way. I was nervous about it. I thought I may never learn the language, but I could do it. And you know me when I didn't speak the language, and now you know me. Now you see me speaking it like better, not perfectly, but better. But they tried to do it again. They tried to commit themselves to do it, and they tried to ask me for certain questions about it. Another thing that I told them that they shouldn't feel afraid is because I know my people, and it's not comfortable sometimes for me to speak with them in English because sometimes I include myself. Sometimes we can be very judgmental, and especially with people very close to you, not because you want to be mean, just because you want them to be better. And you can be so harsh on them that they feel kind of like afraid to speak, to try new things with them. So for example, if I have a cousin who speaks English and I'm learning to speak English, so the most accurate is speak with my cousin in English. But it is not like that. I won't do it because I feel embarrassing in front of him because I'm afraid that he's going to make fun of me. So one of the advocacy success that I had is just trying to erase that kind of like environment with people around me. So the people who speak English, they try to understand more the point of the people who doesn't speak, so they don't make fun of. Even if like it's nothing wrong, they just don't make fun of.
Yeah, creating a more open and embracing community
environment,
a safe environment that you can practice English freely. That's amazing. Thank you, Stefania. So, if our listeners or viewers want to reach to you, how can they contact you?
Well, I am available through email or LinkedIn. I usually try to use different social media pages because I'm studying, so sometimes it's really hard. But I usually is way better by email.
Okay, good. And your email is?
My email is Maira Marroquin, number 10 at iClub.com.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
We're
Thank
going
you so
to
much
take
for inviting me.
Of course. Thank you. We're going to take a short break and we will be back soon.
You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English, the group that's been publishing educational material used by millions of learners around the world. Today, Burlington is a major supplier of digital material for individuals learning English. Burlington continues to grow, enter new markets, and introduce new innovations in language, teaching, and learning. And now, here are co-hosts Erin Vobornik and Sara Haghighi.
Welcome back. My name is Sara, and I'm with my co-host Erin, and you've been listening to Adult Ed Advocast.
This has been a really fun episode, and I'm really excited to invite Regina and Estefania back and just open it up so that each of you have a chance to just share some parting words for our listeners. So we'll start with Regina.
I wrote down several things and I thought, I need to share these tips and tricks or whatever. But you know what? I also wrote down something that Estefania said, and that is, and I think I say this many times when I try to convince people that they need to be doing this work. They need to advocate for adult education and anything that they're passionate about. But I wrote this down. How can you expect others to do the work that you won't do?
Exactly.
I really appreciated that.
Yes, that's very deep and very important. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And Estefania, any parting words you'd like to share with our listeners?
But for the people out there who is listening to this podcast, sometimes things that happening around us makes us to be a little bit more selfish and focusing just in ourselves. But if we put a little bit more of work on situations like this, like advocacy, where we can work to get better instruments for adult education or get better resources for it, we can help future generations to work better in themselves, to help their communities, and not just their communities in the United States, but also in communities in our countries. Because I know a lot of people like me who support a family in our countries, back in our countries. So just take a step and put a little bit of your ground there and just do it.
Well said. Well said. Yes, investing in adult education is investing in future generation. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So for one more time, if we want to reach Regina, how can our listeners reach out to you?
So actually, there's a couple ways through the COABE email system, and that you can pretty much email any COABE address and just say, hey, how can I get a hold of Regina? But president-elect@coabe.org is certainly one way, or through Twitter, they can message me at Regina Suitt, or LinkedIn the same.
Great. And how about you, Stefania?
Well, for me, it's easier through email. My email is Maira Marroquin 10@icloud.com.
Great. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So thanks to everyone for listening. Make sure that you click the subscribe button on YouTube so that you don't miss anything that COABE puts out. You can also find us on Twitter by searching #Advocast and on the COABE website, coabe.org. If you have a question or an idea for an episode, or you say, hey, I have a student who is an incredible success, we need to get them on there, send us an email at advocast@coabe.org. And of course, join us next month for more adult education advocacy with COABE's Adult Ed Advocast.
You're listening to Advocast, the Adult Education Podcast. This podcast has been sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and by Burlington English. You can find us at coabe.org or on COABE's YouTube channel.